morning, everyone. Welcome and Happy New Year. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful that you are with us this morning. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected, a vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship to one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the comments section below, including credits for the readings, to virtual religious education, for donations to our community, and to be added to our email newsletter list. We are especially hopeful that those of you who are with us for the first time sign in on our guest registry so that we can stay in touch with you. The all-church Zoom meeting continues on Wednesday evenings at 5:30. This is open to everyone. We really hope that you join in. And a reminder link will be sent on Wednesday afternoon to the newsletter list. We'll hold a virtual coffee hour and conversation time after the service on Zoom. You can find the link in the comments below or from the newsletter. A little forewarning, this service will run a little long today. At the end of the service, the Ministerial Search Committee will have an announcement, so I hope that you'll stick around. And now I invite you to get your chalices ready. Set a place for you and your family as we join in beloved community. Our opening reading is from Joanna Macy and Molly Brown's book, Coming Back to Life. To choose life means to build a life-sustaining society. To choose life is a mighty adventure. As people everywhere are discovering, this adventure ignites more courage and solidarity than any military campaign. From high school students restoring streams for salmon spawning, to inner city neighborhoods creating community gardens on vacant lots, from First Nations peoples blocking oil production and pipelines on their ancestral lands, to village women bringing solar and water purifying technologies to their communities. Numberless people are organizing, learning, and taking action. This multifaceted human activity on behalf of life may not make today's headlines or newscasts, but to our progeny, it will matter more than anything else we do. When people of the future look back at this historical moment, they will see more clearly than we can now how revolutionary our actions were. Perhaps they'll call it the time of the great turning.
Alice, Nick, Rex, and Enzo light this chalice in northern Illinois on the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sauk, and Fox, also call this area home. We name these in honor and respect. Please join in saying these words by Orlando Bunoil. Flame, friend of our most ancient ancestors, we kindle you now to make you visible in this time. Yet in truth you burn always in the unique worth of each person, in the imagination, in the turning of the heart to sorrow or joy, in the call to hope, and in the call to justice. Burn bright before us, burn bright within us. And please join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
Today, we imagine what might be possible out of this extraordinary moment in time, the incredible now. In truth, each moment is extraordinary in its possibility. At the turning of this moment, at the beginning of this year, we look forward to where we might be going. And we look back at the incredible journey of time that is the story of all life. We are each a part of this incredible story, the story of our life as Gaia, Mother Earth. This is called Thinking Like a Mountain, and the words are adapted from Sherry Prudhomme, a Unitarian Universalist minister who has shared these words in a UU summer camp for children. Sink into this story as a meditation and reminder that it belongs to all of us. Thinking Like a Mountain, a story adapted by Sherry Prudhomme. Come back with me into a story we all share. a story whose rhythm beats in us still. The story belongs to each of us, and to all of us, like the beat of this drum, like the heartbeat of the living universe. With the heartbeat of the drum, we hear the rhythm that underlies all our days and everything we do. Throughout our sleeping, through all our playing, working, and loving, our heart has been beating steadily. That steady inner sound has been with us all the way. In our birth mother's womb, there was that same sound, that same beat, as we floated in the fluid right under her heart. Let that beat take us back farther still. Let's go back, far beyond our beginning in this body, back to the first flaring forth of energy and light. There we were, traveling out with the speed of light, through space and time, in great swirls of gas and dancing particles. 10 billion years later, one of the more beautiful swirls split off from its blazing sun, the sun we feel now on our faces, and became the shape we know as planet Earth. At first, all was volcanic flames and steaming rains, and the bones of the earth called tectonic plates shifted slowly, pushing into one another. To the heartbeat of this drum, you can imagine you are the fire of those early volcanoes, the strength of those tectonic plates. Then we became life in the water as single-celled creatures, and then as fish. We lived in the water with our gills and fins. The salt from those early seas still flows in our sweat and tears. And the age of the dinosaurs we carry with us too, and the first mammals, and the first humans. Humans are a very, very new species on planet Earth. For a long time, we humans lived in small groups in Africa. You remember? We don't have the speed of other animals or their claws or fangs, but we have our remarkable hands. Our thumbs can move separately from our other 4 fingers, and we can shape tools and weapons. And we have in our throats and frontal lobes of our brains the capacities for speech. Grunts and shouts turn into language. Those days and nights on the edge of the forests, as we weave baskets and stories around our fires, make up the longest chapter of our human experience. Then, in small tribes, we began branching out. We moved all across planet Earth. We learned to survive in the cold and hunt mammoth, and we learned the powers of the plants and trees. Only a little while ago in planet Earth time, human beings began to farm crops and raise animals to eat. We built great cities. Major religions were created. There was born a man named Buddha, and shortly after another named Jesus, and a while after that, Muhammad. With the heartbeat of the drum, travel through the lives of your great-grandparents and your grandparents, through the lives of your parents to the moment you were just ready to be born. Take their strength and their love. Your parents offered you a great gift, your own life to live. New parents may have come to you early in your life, or you may have kept your birth parents. Move now through the years of your own life. Accept the gifts of your experience. Own your joys and your sorrows, your unique and precious self. Come now to this moment and stop. You are on the edge of time.
You cannot see clearly the way ahead or imagine what will be asked of you. But you will carry with you the knowledge that it is a blessing you were born. Listen to the drum beat. Listen to the drum beat in your heart. And as you hear it, remember that it is the heartbeat of the universe as well, and of planet Earth and your larger self.
We join our hearts together now in a time of sharing our joys and sorrows. These are those that have been submitted through the Google form found on our website, our homepage. If you have any trouble finding that, you can always send me an email or Reverend Susan Francis. Mary Jean Brandt is currently in Glenbrook Hospital recovering from a surgery and illness. Her spirits are good and hopeful. She wants her UCE community to know that cards would be welcome to her home for when she can return home. Phone calls are still difficult for her. This is from her covenant group, the Independence Covenant Group. From Kara Beskin, I would like to share a joy that my niece's scoliosis surgery went well. Her back had an S curve at around 50 to 48%. Normal is less than 10% for reference. She is back at home and recovering. That is good news. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts, the collective hearts of all of us. We carry much with us. So let us take a moment now to be quiet together and to read to ourselves the joys and the sorrows that have been added to the chat. And we hold these together in care and in tenderness. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of love, presence in the practice of beloved community. Be with us in this time of turning to a new year, a new moment, and to new possibilities. In our turning, may we be thankful for what we have and what we have learned. In our turning, may we acknowledge and tend to our sorrows and loss, knowing our pain does not define us, but can shape us into more compassionate people if we learn to lean in and to love it a little. In our turning, may we never turn away from one another or the truth of who we are. In this time of turning, remind us that we are part of a never-ending continuum of life and love. May we turn to open our hearts and minds, open to new possibilities and new ways of co-creating a more liberating and beautiful existence for all beings. Amen.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal, gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly, when my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
UCE remains a vital part of the world and our community. And because we continue to need one another in the blessings of community, we take this time to invite you to give to our shared plate. Today's offering will be shared with one of our partner organizations, Community Renewal Society. Here is Dennis Wilson to talk about the work of CRS.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Wilson, a member of the Social Justice Organizing Committee at UCE. This month, we are sharing our loose plate offering at UCE with the Community Renewal Society, an organization of over 70 member churches in the Chicago metropolitan area who have been working together for social justice for over 130 years. During the past 14 years, UCE has been a member of CRS. We have developed strong relationships with CRS staff, with our state legislators, and with social justice leaders in other churches. During that time, over half of the members of UCE have participated in one or more, and in many cases many more, of CRS's activities, demonstrations, celebrations, education efforts, and lobbying efforts. In short, UCE and CRS have been through a lot together. Each year, CRS selects specific policy goals. This year, CRS is fighting for independent review of Chicago policing activities. It is also supporting the Restorative Sentencing Act, under which prisoners can get education and training while in jail, get time off from their sentences, and be better prepared to get and keep jobs when they are released. UCE CRS is also fighting for an end to the cash bail system, under which people are held in jail for several days sometimes simply because they don't have enough money to buy a cash bond. If you're interested in any of these issues, please contact me or members of the Social Justice Organizing Committee. We would be glad to have you participate with us. Many here know of CRS because of its support of the Martin Luther King Day. Due to COVID-19, that celebration has been canceled this year, but we look forward to attending MLK Day in 2022. Now, returning to where we were, please be generous with your offering.
Thank you, Dennis. You can text to give, send in a check from our website. If you send in a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
Thank you, friends, for your generosity. We are at a turning point. We are in a profound and critical moment of crisis and opportunity. Though every moment is filled with its own opportunities and challenges, it can be easy to numb ourselves to that, to stay rooted in fear and stuck in the status quo. This time has shaken humanity from the moorings of complacency. What we do in this moment will shape the world to come. Of course, the interlocking crises of this time have been long in the making. It isn't our fault. Yet the consequences which have culminated in the now belong to all of us, and we all have a part to play in turning the wheel of life. The work that reconnects is a collective global movement, decades in the making, based in the wisdom that the healing of our planet is a profoundly personal and collective spiritual adventure, dependent upon and including each of us. The work that reconnects, quote, provides perspectives and practices drawn from system science, deep ecology, and spiritual traditions. And it helps us to reimagine the very real unraveling of the world into the possibility of a great turning. It is a mutually empowering of our commitment to transform ourselves and the world. The work that reconnects is an expansive conversation for justice, peace, and climate activism. I am attributing this work to Joanna Macy and Molly Brown because it is through their book, Coming Back to Life, that I have been introduced to it. But they are not the whole of this movement by any stretch. Joanna Macy is an eco-philosopher, activist, and scholar of Buddhism and systems theory. And Molly Young Brown is an author, teacher, and coach using eco-psychology and psychosynthesis. The work that reconnects is built upon some basic assumptions, including that the world is alive and that we are all a part of its ancient oneness. We can reconnect to Earth as the source of life and deepen our commitment to healing the whole by choosing to acknowledge and bear the pain of the world. This work recognizes three concurrent narratives. We can choose which narrative to feed and fulfill. One story is business as usual, the story of the industrial growth society, of capitalism and consumption, and continuing to take from the earth like there's no tomorrow. Another story is the great unraveling, the truth-telling of scientists, journalists, and activists, explaining the interlocking crises we are within and which are well beyond us. And the third story is the story of the great turning. This is the story of those who understand the great unraveling, but refuse to let it be the ending of our shared story. The great turning is the story of the emergence of new and creative human responses that enable the transition from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. It is the story about how we join together on behalf of Earth and all of life. The work that reconnects is a spiral journey, moving through 4 stages. Coming from gratitude, honoring our pain for the world, seeing with new and ancient eyes, and going forth. As a very abbreviated introduction, we'll move through these stages together. I invite you to have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil if you can, or a journal if you keep one. You might want to write some things down. You can keep these notes for yourself as reminders. At some points, we'll invite you to add thoughts to the chat if that's something you can and want to do. All of this is invitational.
We begin the journey coming from gratitude. All faith is rooted in gratitude. Explore any of the world's religions and you will find gratitude as a foundational principle. To remind ourselves all that we have to be thankful for, to recognize the beauty and the magnificence that life offers each day, is a way of strengthening our commitment to act to preserve and protect these gifts. Joanna Macy and Molly Brown claim that gratitude is politically subversive in the industrial growth society. It helps inoculate us against the consumerism upon which corporate capitalism depends. It serves as a counterweight to the dissatisfaction of what we have and are. On a journey of the great turning, let us begin from gratitude. Think of one thing you love about being alive on Earth. Close your eyes if that helps, and picture your favorite place or your favorite thing to do. If you are able, share it in the chat. You may also want to write it down on a piece of paper as a reminder of the power of coming from gratitude. Let it be a place to continue to remind yourself of all that there is to be grateful for in this life. From the chat, I love being alive on Earth because trees and birds. Of being in my garden, kayaking on lake or river, slowly and quietly watching the wildlife. All the resources on this earth and my wealth in the US, the beauty in nature, flowers, sunsets, and lots more. Of the love I get to feel for others. Of the waterfalls that create rainbows.
We move next from deep appreciation into acknowledgement and honoring of our pain for the world. To love in this life is a great risk. It makes certain the heartbreak of loss. Yet without loving and losing, we are not truly living. In order to feel the joy of the world, we must feel pain. There is much to feel despairing about. When we try to numb ourselves to the pain of the world, we are cutting ourselves off from life. When we can acknowledge and face our pain, not in isolation, but in community and solidarity, we can begin to move through it and find new ways to respond. In the words of Khalil Gibran, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so you must know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. As we move from denying or burying our pain to acknowledging and sharing it in trust, we build our capacity and our strength to feel with others and for the world. That strength gives us resilience to participate in the great turning. To honor our pain for the world, think about how you would finish this sentence. What breaks my heart about the world today is. Write it down. You can put it on your piece of paper or your journal or write it in the chat. Where does the pain you feel for the world live in your body? Is it in your chest, your stomach, between your eyebrows, in your hips? Acknowledge the pain. Attend to it. Thank it for letting you know what is intolerable and unacceptable. Tell your pain, you are right for feeling the way you do. Remind yourself this feeling does not define you. This pain will not destroy you. If it helps to release it, you can write your pain on a piece of paper and later burn it or tear it into little pieces. I invite you again to read from the chat for a moment. Lots of the suffering in low-income areas from death, from the pandemic, suffering and death in third world countries, the unfairness, injustice towards people of color, so much suffering and death throughout the world, the filth people leave behind, the hatred and cruelty that persist, people who don't see our purpose is to help others. And many, many more. Please read those together. As we hold our pain, music can help us to feel it and move through it toward healing. In our pain, we can feel alone, lost, without grounding, motherless.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home.
moving through our pain with honesty and courage and supported in community, we can experience more fully the next part of the journey, seeing with new and ancient eyes. We are living in a time of imaginative decline at the very time in history when we need to be at our most imaginative, writes author Rob Hopkins. Asking what if as a real question is a practice of the great turning. Recalling all that has come before and imagining all that stretches out ahead. We are beholden and bound to all those who have lived until now and all those who are yet to be. Wisdom comes from the genetic code we carry in our cells, just as the COVID vaccine utilizes the wisdom of the RNA in our own cells. Just as 4 basic building blocks form infinite combinations linked in chains, connecting us to trees, to worms, to water and air. What wisdom are we carrying in our bodies, harvested from those who have gone before, and for which we are called to offer the next generations? How can we harvest and pass along such precious wisdom?
One way is by entering into story. This is a story adapted from Constant Washburn called Harvesting the Evolutionary Gifts of All Our Ancestors. So I'd like to invite you now to close your eyes and recall. You are made up of elements of the earth that have been recycled for over 4.5 billion years. Take a moment to feel the pulse in your wrist. The ability to pump fluids around your body was evolved in the first multi-celled creatures in the primordial ocean. And the big muscle of your heart was evolved by your ancestor, great-grandmother worm. Give thanks to the gifts of those ancestors who developed the many miraculous systems that make our bodies work. Now imagine you are with a very small band of early humans from whom we are all descended. This small band set out into the unknown without the protection of fur, fangs, or claws. But they had each other, their friends and family, and these amazingly creative minds and agile hands. Imagine now moving out across the planet with these ancestors and use your arms and hands to gather the gifts they evolved in order to survive. Gather the gifts of courage, curiosity, strength of limb, keenness of eye, resilience and perseverance. The skills of the hunter and the healer, gifts of leadership and caution, understanding and compassion, caring of the young and the sick. Gather knowledge of plants and animals and medicine, gifts of storytelling, dancing and music making for building community. Gather the gifts of those who made tools and wove cloth, those who loved beauty and creativity. All our ancestors survived through the rise and fall of many civilizations and many empires, through times of war and times of peace, through times of plenty and times of famine. Gather the gifts they had to grow food, raise animals, and organize communities. The gifts of strategic thinking and planning, the ability to bear great sorrow and loss, the gift of laughter and forgiveness. Gather the gifts of your ancestors who fought to protect the land and their sacred ways, as well as those who fought for those in power, the knowledge of how greed and fear can warp the mind, the ability to love in the face of evil. Gather the gifts of the dreamers, adventurers, gifts of patience, stability, and steadfastness. Gather the gifts of our great grandparents and grandparents and parents. Gather the gifts that allowed them all to carry on their line so that you could be here today. Now step into your own life and your own body and spirit. Take a moment to harvest the gifts of your own life, your resilience, your intelligence and creativity, your determination and your deep desire for the healing of the world. Like our first ancestors looking out into the unknown, today we face a very uncertain future together. We face wars, extinction of species, climate disruption, oppression, and diseases. We also face opportunity for great change and evolution, liberation, unity, and love. We don't know what lies ahead, but we face it together. And we go bearing the gifts of our ancestors to pass on to future generations. Imagine in front of you your children or your neighbor's children. Then imagine in front of them the grandchildren and their children and their children. Visualize all the gifts of our ancestors pouring out of your hands into the future generations of descendants who will carry them forth through time. Put your hands together and bow to the ancestors. Bow to the future generations, pulling us forward through time. Bow to the other human beings on screens who share this world with you today.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are
the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Coming from gratitude into honoring our pain for the world and seeing with new and ancient eyes, we are ready to go forth. Imagining new possibilities, knowing we are profoundly connected to all the life that has been and beholden to life yet to come. Let us renew our commitments to live our values, knowing more deeply that we belong to each other. We can move forward understanding that power over is not the only true story. Power with can be more than a fantastical vision. It can be a reality we co-create by imagining it is possible. In the work that reconnects, workshop participants are invited at the close to consider 5 vows emerging from a sincere desire to participate in the great turning of our world toward collective liberation, healing, and true peace. Vow may be a word you are not ready for. You can consider these as a covenant or commitment, taken one at a time or as a whole. As Unitarian Universalists, we understand covenants as sacred relational promises to live into our values. As a congregation, we have our own end statements, the goals towards which we strive in service to our shared mission. I invite you to listen to these vows as if they were your own personal end statement. Listen for where your heart is called and consider if these are promises you can make in the confines of your heart and with the full-throated yes the great turning requires. I vow to myself and to each of you to commit myself daily to the healing of our world and the welfare of all beings. I vow to myself and to each of you to live on earth more lightly and less violently in the food, products, and energy I consume. I vow to myself and to each of you to draw strength and guidance from the living earth, the ancestors, the future beings, and our siblings of all species. I vow to myself and to each of you to support you in your work for the world and to ask for help when I need it. I vow to myself and to each of you to pursue a daily spiritual practice that clarifies my mind, strengthens my heart, and supports me in observing these vows. Say yes with me if you can. Yes.
We are building a new way.
Good morning. My name is Susan Carlton, and I'm the chair of the Ministerial Search Committee. We are pleased to recommend Reverend Eileen Wiviot as candidate for the position of senior minister at the Unitarian Church of Evanston. During our discernment period, we listened to the feedback of everyone who attended the congregational cottage meetings and focus groups and who completed the congregational survey, and to those of you who met with us individually. These are the priorities of the congregation and the Board of Trustees as we heard and understood. Worship. There is a desire for an inspirational and meaningful sermons and for creative and cohesive services. Community building. There's a desire to create the beloved community here at UCE. Pastoral care. We identified the need to minister and care for our members who are ill, experiencing a death or a tragedy, or are seriously challenged in aspects of their daily lives. Social justice. We desire for the minister to be involved and to encourage the involvement of the congregation in helping to create a just and equitable world with an emphasis on anti-racism work. Membership growth. We identified the need to maintain a vibrant community and with an emphasis on attracting and retaining families with young children and younger adults. Religious education. We identified the need to increase the enrollment in our programs for children and youth. We believe Reverend Eileen has demonstrated her qualities and skills in these areas in the following ways.
I'm Tom Hempfling, and I will address worship. Engaging and well-attended Sunday morning services lead to a vibrant congregation. We all have witnessed how Reverend Eileen has effectively collaborated in putting together well-planned, meaningful, and cohesive services. It's my honor to be the current chair of the Worship Arts Committee as well as a member of the Search Committee. I have experienced Eileen's worship planning abilities myself, as well as heard your feedback during the recent discernment process. The Search Committee has heard you say such things as, Eileen's sermons crystallize the need for fundamental transformation in our society. The mark of a great sermon is when it changes your life. I have never felt more called to be a better person than when hearing Eileen. I am inspired by Eileen's empathy and ability to speak hard truths with love. Eileen is not afraid to be vulnerable, and we sense she will understand us when we need to talk about our own vulnerabilities. During the first virtual service, I just sat on the couch and cried. I felt so cared for by the community and Eileen. And I always feel filled by Eileen's sermons. She opens up my spirit. We agree, and we feel these words from hymn number 1000, Morning Has Come, are both literally and poetically appropriate. Morning has come, arise and greet the day. The light of hope here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
I'm Alice Swan, and I will address community building. One of the primary goals of Reverend Eileen's ministry is to create beloved community within the congregation. She believes that we learn and grow most profoundly through relationships, and that we are capable of being most whole when we are engaged in diverse, intentional, loving communities that speak truth to power. The Hospitality Team Program is an excellent example of Reverend Eileen's dedication to community building. She created a program that involves every member of our congregation in nurturing a warm and welcoming atmosphere for all who walk through our doors. Reverend Eileen has demonstrated her commitment to fostering community in a virtual world as well, from assuring access to online services to Wednesday all-church meetings, covenant groups, and proximity partners.
My name is Jordan Strieber, and I'll be talking about pastoral care. Because Reverend Eileen views ministry as relational, she values our interconnectedness and emphasizes our need to care for one another. During the cottage meetings held this fall, when you were asked to describe a time you experienced a minister say or do something extraordinary during their role as pastor, you overwhelmingly spoke to experiences receiving pastoral care from Reverend Eileen. Her kindness, empathy, ability to deeply listen, and be fully present are her way of being in the world.
Hi, I'm Steve Sarakaku, and I'm here to address social justice. You know, the top reason mentioned in the cottage meetings for pride in UCE was how the congregation stands for social justice. Almost every participant mentioned this. Reverend Eileen has shown that social justice is one of her top priorities as well. She has called for dismantling white supremacy culture from the pulpit, co-led workshops on gender, led meetings addressing the issues brought up by the Me Too movement, led meetings addressing the issues on held leadership roles in the Evanston interfaith clergy group. And she traveled to the border to witness the injustices of the misnamed Migrant Protection Program and reported on what she saw in several venues. Reverend Eileen leads by example, not in a strident way. She makes allowances for where everyone is on the journey to help make the world whole. She sees working for social justice as a part of creating beloved community at UCE. We become closer as we work together to address what our principles and common values tell us we must. She has the relationships with the congregation that allow her to lead us in uncomfortable conversations and reflections. And these make Reverend Eileen a great candidate for the senior minister of this congregation.
Hi, I'm Emily Stana, and I'll be speaking to membership growth. As membership director, Reverend Eileen is well grounded in membership and congregational growth. Her focus on relational ministry draws people into our congregation, and many of you have given examples of how she made you feel welcomed when you were newcomers to the congregation. While her role in membership and growth will necessarily change as she takes on the senior minister role, Reverend Eileen has committed to working with the Director of Congregational Life, as well as the Congregational Life Assistant, to continue to welcome families, young adults, and other newcomers to the congregation in myriad ways. The Proximity Partner Groups are one example of an initiative in which she worked with Reverend Susan Francis to make people feel connected and part of the greater UCE community, even in the midst of pandemic.
Hello, I'm Sandy McNabb, and I'm going to speak to religious education. Although Reverend Eileen has less direct experience in religious education than in the other areas we've mentioned, she has a solid base of knowledge from parenting 2 children as they went through the religious education program at UCE, to her bachelor's degree in elementary education, and her experience on the Religious Education Board. The Religious Education Board was the predecessor to what is now the Lifespan Learning Council. In addition to Eileen's strengths, UCE has a strong director of Lifespan Religious Education in Kathy Underwood, and she and Reverend Eileen have a positive, collaborative working relationship. And perhaps most importantly, we believe that Reverend Eileen has an exciting vision for what the religious education program can grow to be.
With the call of a settled senior minister, we will be building a new way for our community. Over the next 3-week transitional period, the Ministerial Search Committee encourages all of us to seriously reflect on the expectations we have of our settled senior minister and of ourselves, individually and as a congregation, as we move forward. If called by the congregation, how do we best support Reverend Eileen's ministry and continue with her guidance to create the beloved community here at UCE? If called, Reverend Eileen's priorities as settled minister must necessarily shift. She would need to shift more of her focus from individual pastoral needs to her responsibilities to the overall institution. She could not realistically be available on an individual or group basis as she has been up until now. We can see an example of this necessary shift in responding directly to pastoral care needs. Reverend Eileen will still be the lead pastoral presence for the congregation, available when there is a death, a serious accident, or a tragedy. She will rely on the pastoral care team to be our first responders for less critical care needs. Hopefully, the entire congregation will also step up and step into caring for one another as the need arises. We encourage you to use this time leading up to the congregational meeting and vote to think and talk about shifting expectations and changes we must make to help ensure the success of this next phase of our ministry.
So the next steps. The search committee will host a virtual candidating week, the week of January 17th to 24th. The purpose of this week is to provide opportunities for the congregation to discuss with Reverend Eileen how we move forward with respect to our mission, our end statements, and the priorities identified by the congregation during the search discernment process, and for Reverend Eileen to discuss her vision for her ministry going forward. To this end, we are in the process of scheduling meetings with the membership, social justice, integrated stewardship, and lifelong learning councils, the pastoral care team, the worship arts committee, and the board. These meetings will be open to anyone interested in discussing the future of the relevant group with Reverend Eileen. We are also scheduling 2 to 3 open receptions, one of which will be on Wednesday, January 20th at 5:30 p.m. during the weekly all-congregation Zoom. Dates, time, and Zoom links for all meetings will be posted on the search committee page of the UCE website once they are finalized. There will be a link to that page in the newsletter on January 8th and January 15th. The culmination of candidating week will be a congregational meeting on Sunday, January 24th after the service, when the congregation will vote on calling Reverend Eileen as our senior minister. Anyone who has been a member of UCE for at least 90 days is eligible to vote. The Ministerial Search Committee has gone through the process of discerning the congregation's vision for our next settled minister, and we are recommending Reverend Eileen as a highly qualified candidate for the position, but the ultimate decision to call her lies with the congregation at large. Our bylaws stipulate that a quorum of at least 40% of our membership must participate in the election, so please attend on the 24th and exercise your right to vote.
We want to thank you for your participation over the last period of time as we were discerning the needs of the congregation going forward. Your participation was appreciated and valued. We are calling on you once again, as Alice mentioned, to participate in candidating week and to have your voice heard by voting at the congregational meeting on Sunday, January 24th. We need your help with building a new way, working together as a congregation to, as described in this morning's hymn, be free, feeding every need. Thank you.
Dear ones, my heart is filled with joy to be your candidate for the next called senior minister of the Unitarian Church of Evanston. I look forward to deep conversations in the coming weeks of imagining what our shared ministry will be moving forward. I know we will come to these conversations with curiosity, with hope, and mutual love of Unitarian Universalism and this congregation. The Ministerial Search Committee has my deep and never-ending gratitude and appreciation for their tremendous hard work and dedication to this process over a very long period of time. They have practiced an extraordinary amount of focus with open hearts and minds and maintained the integrity that this process required. They listened to you well. And my gratitude and appreciation for all of you and for your participation in the process, for sharing your voices, your concerns, and your wishes. I receive your collective hard work, your thoughtfulness and dedication with love and in appreciation and anticipation of what we will build together. Please come to the meeting on the 24th, and I'll see you all soon.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again.
Our benediction is an excerpt from The Great Turning by Christine Fry. You asked me to tell you of the Great Turning, of how we saved the world from disaster. The answer is both simple and complex. We turned to face the pain, turned to face the stranger, turned to look at the smoldering world and the hatred seething in too many eyes, turned to face ourselves. And as the people turned, as they spun like the earth through the universe, the web wrapped around them like a soft blanket, making it clear all were loved, nothing separate. As this love reached into every crack and crevice, the people began to wake and wonder, to breathe and give thanks, to celebrate together. And so the world was saved, but only as long as you too, sweet ones, remember to turn. May it be so.